This took place 2 years ago on Halloween night in 2023. I'm a 25-year-old male now, but at the time I was 22. I just finished a long day at work because of a festival we held, where parents brought their kids to our community center for all kinds of activities, competitive games, a costume contest, trivia for candy, and even a kids versus parents dodgeball match. It was a great event, but exhausting. For context, I work in community outreach, so putting together events like this is part of my regular routine, though it's definitely draining. When it was finally over, I went home, ready to relax and call it a night. About an hour later, around 6-something, my little sister called me. Her name's Savannah, and she wanted me to take her and my nephew, Jackson, trick-or-treating since neither our parents nor Jackson's parents were up for it. As usual, it fell on me to be the cool, big brother who makes things happen. Savannah was 15 at the time, and Jackson was 11. Even though I was dead tired, I got dressed and drove to my parents' house to pick them up. Savannah was still finishing her costume when I arrived. She was dressed as Raven from Teen Titans, complete with white makeup for that ghostly look. Jackson was Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. Once they were both ready, we got in the car and headed out to a busy neighborhood so they could get plenty of candy. Everything started out great. We went house to house, meeting friendly people handing out generous treats. One older man even gave the kids hot dogs and sodas instead of candy, saying he preferred to give kids something with protein. Honestly, we need more people like him. We passed other trick-or-treaters, and both Savannah and Jackson got plenty of compliments on their costumes. I even saw some impressive ones myself. People really went all out. After hitting the last house, we started our 10-minute walk back to the car. The neighborhood had quieted down by then, and there weren't many people around. That's when I noticed someone across the street, standing in a dark yard with no lights on. They were dressed in all black, a hooded cloak, dark clothing, and what looked like a mask, since I couldn't see their face. I couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. They seemed to be staring right at us. I told Savannah and Jackson to stay close and said, "There's a suspicious person across the street. Look, but don't stare." Jackson laughed it off, assuming it was someone trying to scare trick-or-treaters, but Savannah looked uneasy. For context, I was carrying my backpack, which had a Glock inside. Savannah knew that, so she could tell I was serious. Jackson had no idea, he was too young to know. As we walked, I noticed the person still watching us. Then, suddenly, I heard heavy footsteps behind us, like boots on concrete. When I turned around, I saw the same person again, but this time more clearly. They were in tactical gear, vest, boots, black pants tucked in, and a full spandex mask covering their entire face. That's when my gut told me this was serious. I whispered, "They're following us. Keep walking. Don't look back, don't stop." Savannah understood immediately. Jackson, not so much, but he followed along. The person stayed the same distance behind us the whole time. When we finally reached the car, they were still approaching. I made a quick decision, pulled out my Glock and aimed it at them. I demanded to know why they were following us. The figure raised their hands, seemingly startled, and then slowly removed the mask. It was a woman, probably in her 30s. She just stared blankly without answering. I repeated my question. Then, in a robotic tone, she said, "I'm an undercover cop. I got a report about a break-in and came to investigate. You looked at me suspiciously, so I thought you might be the suspect. Lower your weapon, or I could have you arrested for threatening an officer." I hesitated but lowered the gun. What else could I do? I didn't want to risk an arrest or scare the kids. Still, her story made no sense. Why would she just stand outside instead of investigating the supposed break-in? And why the cloak? I asked her that directly, but she didn't answer. Instead, her expression shifted, and I saw something malicious in her eyes. Then she smiled, a cold, eerie smile, and said, "If you didn't have that gun, this night would have ended a hell of a lot different for you." Right after she said that, 4 more figures emerged from between nearby houses, all wearing tactical gear, though without cloaks. I told Savannah and Jackson to get in the car immediately. They obeyed while I kept my eyes on the group. Once they were safely inside, I got in and drove off. As we left, that woman was still smiling, while the others stood expressionless, like empty shells. The drive back was silent. The kids were clearly in shock, and honestly, so was I. After dropping them off safely, I went home and tried to process what happened. I couldn't stop wondering, why us? There were so many people out that night. A few days later, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of my car, taken in my apartment parking lot. No words. I went straight to the police, explained everything, and filed a report. They said they couldn't do much unless a direct threat was made. Typical. Out of curiosity, and maybe stupidity, I returned to the same house where I'd first seen that woman. A man in his 40s answered the door. I asked if there'd been a break-in on Halloween. He looked confused and said no, he'd gone to bed early and hadn't noticed anything strange. That confirmed it, her story was a lie. Whoever those people were, they knew my number and where I lived. It made me wonder, was that encounter random at all? Had they been watching me for a while? Maybe my being armed threw off whatever they were planning. Those thoughts haunted me for a long time. I ended up getting therapy and installing a Ring camera just to feel safe again. Nothing else has happened since, no more strange texts or sightings. But even 2 years later, I still think about that night. Writing this helps me cope. If there's one thing I want people to take from this, it's to stay alert. Always be aware of your surroundings, because danger can find you in the most ordinary moments. And if I'm being honest, I'm certain that being armed that night saved our lives. This happened when I was 12 years old, on Halloween night. My family had decided to spend the weekend at a small family resort about an hour from home. My parents wanted to do something different that year instead of the usual neighborhood trick-or-treating. The resort was hosting a Halloween celebration with games, activities, and even a haunted hayride. It wasn't a big place, maybe 10 cabins, a main lodge, a small lake, and a big open field where they set up the events. The whole resort was surrounded by woods, which looked peaceful during the day but turned dark and eerie once the sun went down. We checked in that afternoon, and I remember feeling excited as the smell of campfires and candy apples filled the air. Kids were already running around in costumes, even though it wasn't dark yet. My parents told me the hayride would start at 7, with games before that, so I went off to play while they unpacked. There were booths for ring tosses, pumpkin carving, and a costume contest, all lit by orange string lights and fake spider webs. That's where I met another kid around my age named Ryan. He was dressed as a skeleton, and he and his parents were staying in the cabin next to ours. We hung out, played games, and collected candy until it was time for the hayride. Families started gathering near the barn where the tractor and wagon were waiting. About 20 of us climbed aboard, sitting on hay bales while the driver, wearing a scarecrow mask, started the engine. Workers dressed as zombies lurked in the woods, ready to jump out and scare people as we went by. At first, everything was fun. The trail through the woods was lined with torches, and everyone screamed and laughed when actors popped out from behind trees. But halfway through, the tractor slowed down in a darker part of the trail, and that's when I noticed something that made my stomach twist. Just beyond the torchlight, a man was standing at the edge of the woods. He didn't look like one of the workers. He wore a black jacket, jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. He wasn't moving, just standing there with his hands in his pockets, watching. I thought maybe he was taking a break, but something about him felt wrong. When I glanced back, he was still there, completely still, and even though I couldn't see his eyes, I could feel them on me. No one else seemed to notice. When the hayride ended, I looked again, but he was gone. I didn't tell anyone then, I thought maybe I imagined it. Later, back at the lodge, everyone was gathered around the bonfire, eating and playing games. My parents were talking by the fire while Ryan and I went around getting more candy. Everything felt normal again until I saw him. He was standing about 30 feet away, half hidden by the trees, just watching. I recognized him immediately, the same man from the woods. My stomach dropped. I nudged Ryan and told him. He glanced over and said, "Maybe he's one of the workers." I shook my head. No, he was in the woods earlier. Ryan tried to brush it off, saying he might be a parent, but the man wasn't talking to anyone. He was just standing there, staring. When I looked back a few minutes later, he was gone again. Around 9, most families had gone back to their cabins. Ryan and I still had energy, so we decided to explore a little before heading in. Behind the cabins was a dirt trail leading into the woods. Ryan dared me to walk a bit down it, said it'd be fun to do something spooky for Halloween. I didn't want to seem scared, so I agreed. We walked maybe a couple hundred feet, our flashlights cutting through the dark. The deeper we went, the quieter everything got until the only sound was our footsteps. We stopped near a clearing with an old wooden sign that read, "Private Property." We started tossing rocks at it, joking around, when we heard it, heavy, slow footsteps coming from deeper down the trail. We froze. Ryan whispered, "Probably another kid," but the footsteps were too heavy. They sounded like an adult. I pointed my flashlight toward the noise, but the beam didn't reach far enough. Then the footsteps stopped. For a few seconds, it was silent. Then a man's voice called out, "Hey there, boys." My heart started pounding. Ryan's face went pale. The man stepped forward just enough for us to see him, the same black jacket and cap. "What are you two doing out here?" he said. "You like candy?" He pulled something from his pocket and held it up. I could see the orange wrapper of a Reese's cup. "I got a bunch more of these in my cabin," he said. "Come on, I'll give you some." Neither of us moved. Then he added, "You don't have to be scared. It's Halloween. I saw you boys on the hayride earlier." That's when I knew it was him. I grabbed Ryan's arm and whispered, "Run." We turned and sprinted back toward the resort. I could hear his footsteps behind us, fast and heavy. I didn't dare look back. My heart was racing, my legs barely keeping up. Finally, the glow of the resort lights came into view, and I started shouting for help. People near the bonfire turned as we burst out of the woods, gasping for air. When I looked back, the man was gone. My parents rushed over, and I told them everything, seeing him on the hayride, spotting him by the trees, and what happened on the trail. Ryan backed me up completely. My dad and another man grabbed flashlights and searched, but they didn't find anyone. Resort staff called the local police, who arrived about half an hour later to take our statements. They searched the woods but found no trace of him. That night, my parents didn't let me out of their sight. We stayed in the cabin with the door locked. I barely slept, jumping at every noise outside. The next morning, the police came back and said they hadn't found anyone matching the description, no vehicles out of place, and no guests fitting his appearance. They figured it was probably a trespasser from outside the property. We packed up and left later that day. As we drove past the woods, I stared out the window, half expecting to see him again. For weeks afterward, I thought I caught glimpses of him, outside stores, near school, but it was always someone else. At least, I hope it was. Ryan and I stayed in touch for a while, and he told me he couldn't sleep for days. The man was never identified or caught, and the police never called again. Now that I'm older, what scares me isn't what he did, it's what he could have done. If we'd hesitated for even a second, if we'd walked toward him instead of running, I don't think I'd be here to tell this story. Ever since that night, whenever I see someone standing alone at the edge of a crowd on Halloween, I can't help but think of that man. Sometimes, the people who seem like they're part of the fun are watching for a much darker reason. My name is Roger, and this happened to me on Halloween night 3 years ago. I'm 29 now and work a dull office job, though the pay is decent. Back then, I was still the new guy, stuck with the leftover shifts, denied time off, and always covering for others. So when Halloween, my favorite holiday, finally came around, I was genuinely excited to have a quiet night to myself. I just wanted to see kids out having fun, hand out candy, and relax with some scary movies. At the time, I lived in a small house on the outskirts of town. It wasn't completely isolated, I had neighbors, but once trick-or-treating ended, the street got dead quiet. Most families shut off their porch lights around 9 p.m. My girlfriend was away visiting her parents that weekend, so it was just me. I handed out candy until the flow of kids stopped, then settled in for the night. I was used to the occasional Halloween prank, doorbell ditches, knocks and runs, but nothing serious. That year, Halloween landed on a Saturday. The air was crisp and cool, the sky clear. Around 10:30, I was lounging on the couch, half watching The Conjuring 2 while picking through leftover candy. I hadn't had a visitor in almost an hour when I heard a faint knock at my side door. I figured it was a late trick-or-treater, so I got up and opened the door. No one was there, just the empty driveway and the sound of leaves rustling. I laughed it off, assuming it was a prank, and went back to my movie. About 15 minutes later, I heard another noise. This time, it came from the back door, the one leading to the deck. That immediately put me on edge because no one ever used that entrance. I muted the TV and listened. The sound came again, faint but distinct, the metal rattle of the doorknob being tested, turned slowly, as if someone was checking if it was unlocked. My heart started pounding. I moved carefully toward the kitchen, crouching low, and peered through the small window beside the door. That's when I saw him. A man was crouched by the back door, wearing dark clothes and a cracked Halloween mask pushed up on his head. In his hand, he held a crowbar. He wasn't sneaking, he was calm, deliberate, like he knew exactly what he was doing. I backed away quietly and grabbed my phone, whispering to the 911 operator as I explained what was happening. She told me to stay on the line, lock myself in a room, and keep quiet. I didn't want to make noise by slamming doors, so I crept up the stairs and crouched at the top, clutching a kitchen knife while whispering updates into the phone. A moment later, I saw him move away from the back door. Then I heard a soft pop, the sound of a window screen being pried loose. He was at the basement window now. My voice trembled as I whispered, "He's at the basement." The dispatcher said officers were on their way. Then came the sound that made my blood run cold, glass breaking. He was smashing the basement window. And this wasn't a random break-in. He knew someone was inside. Most burglars avoid occupied homes, but this guy didn't care. Minutes dragged by like hours. The dispatcher kept me calm, asking quiet questions to make sure I was still safe. Then I heard the crunch of footsteps outside again, moving around the house. I held my breath. Suddenly, lights flashed through the blinds. Red and blue. Relief washed over me so hard I almost cried. Police cars had pulled into my driveway. I saw the man take off running through the yard, but he didn't get far. The officers tackled him just past the mailbox. I didn't even realize how badly I was shaking until one of the officers came to tell me it was over. They'd caught him. When they searched his bag, what they found made my stomach twist: zip ties, duct tape, and the same crowbar I'd seen earlier. This wasn't a petty thief. He had a plan, and it was something far worse. The police later told me he had a record of home invasions and was a suspect in a few disappearances. Hearing that sent chills down my spine. To this day, I hate being alone on Halloween. Every little sound outside, footsteps, knocking, makes my skin crawl. The scariest part is knowing how close it was. If the police had been 5 minutes later, I might not be alive to tell this story. A few weeks after the arrest, the officers followed up with me. They said they'd found even more in his backpack, a .45 handgun, several knives, and a coil of rope. That's when it really sank in. It wasn't just a scare. It was almost something much worse.